uh, Europe by several countries, and it's fitting that he's being honored in the United States now. Sweden has long been held up as a paragon of social democracy and progressive policies. I remember Dag Hammarskjöld as Secretary General of the United Nations, and his appointment as first Secretary General was very symbolic of Sweden's role. I also remember when it was an opposition research point that Mike Dukakis took reports on Swedish childcare policy with him as beach reading during the summers. Sweden also has been a global technology leader. We've seen the emergence of global leading companies like Ericsson, like Spotify, and people like Goran Marby, who now heads ICANN, the International Corporation for, or the Internet Corporation for Numbers and Names, that runs the domain name system. Andreas said that Sweden went through an election like no other. That's certainly something that resonates for us in the United States and in other countries. The political currents that he dealt with are evidence that the challenges of fragmentation, of polarization, of nativism, authoritarianism, and disinformation politics are present even in the most democratic countries on earth. And his success in preserving democratic rule, I think, is a hopeful sign for all of us. Those challenges make it all the more important that democratic countries band together in many ways. And that includes on artificial intelligence, e-commerce, malicious online content, election interference, cyber threats. These are all global issues that are magnified by network effects that no one country, even the United States, can manage by itself. The issues are broad, complex, and there's no one forum that is capable of addressing all the issues. The effective policymaking on the challenges that are enabled by digital technology are going to take many different avenues. A network of networks in parallel to the communications systems that link us. Boston Global Forum is one node in the wide and diverse networks that are needed. This week's Global Democracy Summit that President Biden hosted is another. The week before last, I attended the Future Tech Forum that the UK government convened with G7 members and 10 other democratic countries, all global and regional leaders in digital technology, to explore the same kinds of issues that BGF and Club de Madrid are developing, issues of technology policy and emerging developments in the next 10 years and their implications for public policies. And I think in this policy development process, packets of progress can travel by diverse paths across many networks, just as internet communications do, and assemble in a recognizable whole. I think the process of developing an international accord needs to be an iterative one through these many channels. AI has certainly been a key focus of the work that the Boston Global Forum and the Mike Dukakis Institute have been doing. And AI is a critical path for international cooperation for several reasons. First is that cooperation is essential to the successful development and management of AI. In the 21st century, most scientific research involves international collaboration. But this is particularly true for AI R&D because it crosses institutions, disciplines, and borders because of the scale of data, of compute power, the skills that are needed. And it relies heavily on open source software. So international cooperation also presents a unique opportunity for collaboration because every country, every region is still in the early stages of policy making. So we have the opportunity to align approaches in ways that can avoid the kind of divergence that we've seen in the area of privacy and data protection, where it's now causing barriers to the free flow of data between the US and the EU. It also would present a coherent counterpoint to China's techno-authoritarianism and prevent a race to the bottom. Since the Policy Lab in September, along with colleagues at the Brookings Institution and partners at the Center for European Policy Studies in Brussels, I released a report on international cooperation in artificial intelligence policy and development. It's a comprehensive report that focuses on 15 concrete steps to put cooperation into practice. It begins with a very simple proposition that like-minded countries commit to considering international cooperation in drafting and implementing AI policies. At the UK's Future Tech Forum that I attended, the UK government gave an example of putting that recommendation into practice. It asked participating countries to comment on its proposed Online Safety Act. That is an unusual step, too unusual a step in international relations. And it is one that needs to become a norm in digital policy making if we are going to address these transnational issues effectively. Much of the report focuses on the mechanics of regulation, of risk assessment, and of standards development. And I was interested in Andreas Norland's comments on Sweden's experience with rolling out AI in government services. And it illustrates, I think, two important principles of risk analysis and of putting AI into practice. One is that you need to look at what are the risks of not using the technology. Sweden saw an increased accuracy in the delivery of services, but also saw challenges with the accuracy and other aspects of deployment, and that affirms the need to continually measure and to audit the developments. That's part of how AI needs to work, to learn from the process. And I think in these developments, we need to recall how the internet was developed. With researchers like Tim Berners-Lee and organizations like the World Wide Web Forum, standards development organizations, ICANN that I mentioned. These were stakeholders and technicians hammering out technical standards and systems. And I think that those are examples of the kinds of policy making that needs to happen for AI policy and standards. It's transnational, it's multi-stakeholder, it's public-private collaboration, and it's focused on the technology, and research and technology driven. One difference, though, today from the development of the early internet is that the impact of the technology is exponentially broader. And some multinational corporations have acquired great power. So these companies are essential participants in the policymaking, but they cannot be the ones to make the rules. There's one other concrete step for international cooperation, collaboration in AI that I want to mention to you. And that is that like-minded governments need to commit to collaboration on research and development on projects that can harness AI for public goods of global importance, like Earth observation for climate change, or more powerful computation for privacy protecting ways of sharing data, or for monitoring of public health. These projects are not only ways to work together on solving important problems for humanity, but also working through ethics, like working through issues like ethics, like data governance, data sharing, in the context of specific use cases where there's motivation to get the job done. A enormous test bed for how we approach AI. This is, I think, a challenge, but as President Kennedy said about going to the moon, we should do this not because it's easy, but because it is hard. The goal can serve to organize the best measure of our energies and skills. So AI is just one domain of digital policymaking where the US, its allies, and like-minded countries need to work in concert and align policies. Perhaps the most important, but only one. And the price of not engaging in that kind of collaboration is divergence and fragmentation, and an increase in the dangerous effects of technology that so many governments have faced, and that Andreas Norlin had to address in Sweden. And we already have, in effect, a bifurcated internet on this earth, China's and a shared internet. We don't need further forking to diminish global networks' effects that benefit our planet. So I am grateful to Boston Global Forum for its work in bringing together leaders from around the world to build cooperation and trust. And I'm grateful to Andreas Norlin for his example of the painstaking and patient building it takes to forge consensus out of disparate positions. And these are the tasks ahead for all of us. So thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you today.